let's get into the man, the myth, the legend, Albert Pike. So I stated in day one, I'm gonna discuss Albert Pike. So just a brief synopsis on Pike. Pike, December 29th, 1809 to April 2nd, 1891, was an American author, poet, orator, jurist, and prominent member of the Freemasons. He was also a senior officer of the Confederate States Army who commanded the District of Indian Territory in the Trans-Mississippi Theater of the Americans. So basically, Pike was a commander of the rebels. So it begs, this is why I think we're dying for this lack of knowledge. We have my uncle who's a Mason. These dudes worship Pike, but do they know who he is? What side he was on? But I'm gonna leave it at that. Pike first joined the Fraternal Independent Order of Odd Fellows in 1840. He next joined the Masonic Lodge, where he became extremely active in the affairs of the organization. In 1859, he was elected Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite's Southern Jurisdiction. That's the highest you can go in Freemasonry. There's the Scottish Rite, which is 33rd degree. The Scottish Rite and the other one escaped my mind. The other Rite on the other side goes to 33 degrees, but it's still the highest you can go is 3 degrees. It's just another form of so-called knowledge attainment, right? But he remained Sovereign Grand Commander for the remainder of his life, a total of 32 years, devoting a large amount of his time to develop the rituals of the order. Now, this is where I really wanted to touch on Pike that we really ain't gonna read in books. So Pike had a trance, right? In 1871, during the Civil War, Pike wrote a letter to an Italian named Giuseppe Mazzini, a revolutionist. In this letter, Pike reveals the Illuminati's plan to bring forth this one world government, aka New World Order, and claims to have received this vision from a trance, an altered state of consciousness. The plan laid out the events of World War I, World War II. Well, not so much World War I, because World War I was in World War I, World War II, and World War III. And part of his motivations was seeing how the Civil War was impacted. So let's see here. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires were used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy other governments in order to weaken the religions. Now, if you know anything about World War I, Stalin rose up, created his own, not only USSR, but he turned himself a god, got rid of religion. That was the first atheistic government right there. This is why we have to be mindful of these secret society. Whether you know it or not, you're operating as a double agent. On the outside, it seems you're loyal to your people and cause, but internally, you've taken a higher oath, a blood oath. The Rothschilds had an eternal hatred for Russia from their defeat by Russian Khazars in 965 AD to the way Russia is today. So the Second World War, now this is him predicting the world wars. This is him saying how things is going to play out. And if you notice what happened in them world wars, they played out exactly how they planned it. So the Second World War played out like this, where there were, of course, it was the fascists and this is Zionists. And the Zionists was the Rothschilds, the European Jewry. That was the Zionists. Now, what I wanted to focus your attention on is that second sentence. This war must be brought about that Nazism is destroyed. Now, he wrote this letter. Now, bring me our brains real quick. He wrote this letter in 1871 to Giuseppe, right? Nazism didn't come about to what year? I want y'all to think about it. Nazism didn't come about to what year? How did Pike know about Nazism in 1871? Hitler didn't come into power until the 1920s, and they didn't refer to themselves as Nazis. They were known as the Aryan Brotherhood. So where did the word derive? And what about telling the sovereign state of Israel and Palestine? So I did this little timeline real quick. 1861 to 1865, the Civil War, right? After that, 1913, the Federal Reserve came about, which began IRS taxation. So the IRS backed the Federal Reserve by taxing us, right? Which in the Constitution, we wasn't supposed to be taxed anyway. But 1914 to 1918 was the World War. Now let me stop there. I know this is tough for Saturday morning, but like I'm getting somewhere. I'm trying to get us somewhere, but I can't get us to that point without trying to go through this. So if I am going too fast, please stop me. But I want us to get somewhere. I want us to get somewhere. So Pike didn't predict this, right? Russia helped the Union thwart off the attack by the South, who was winning the war. So if we know anything about the Civil War, the South was winning. They had the best commanders. They had the best generals. They was funded properly by Britain, right? They were for all intensive purposes, they was winning the Civil War. All of a sudden, Russia came in. Russia, the Tsar Nicholas II came in and supported Abraham Lincoln with ships. And all of a sudden, the South lost. Because if you know, if you remember history, the North with their generals, I mean, one of them was a drunk, I believe. So the North was all intents and purposes losing the war. So what's funny about that is that the Rothschilds, the South was allied with Great Britain and the Rothschild family. Even though the Rothschilds owned England and was funding both sides of the war, they had this mindset on the South winning. Now we love to talk about, and I know you want to touch on this too, Vaughn and Kels, and I know a lot of y'all, when we read books, we read about the Middle Passage. Do we ever stop and think why they called it the Middle Passage? That means there was a first and a last passage. We only speak about the ships that went from Africa to America. But do we know them ships started from England to Africa? That was the first passage. And the third passage was back from America back to England. And who funded them ships? Who funded them ships? Who had the financial backing to not only fund them ships, but ensure every enslaved American or African-American, so-called African-American that came here? But I'm gonna digress from that. World War I, that was with Germany, Austria, Bulgaria, Ottoman Empire. They fought against Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, and Japan. And the United States came in later. Germany was winning the war against Great Britain due to the invention of the U-boat. So for all intents and purposes, Germany was very advanced. And part of the reason Germany was winning the war in World War I was due to these U-boats, which we call submarines today. Now, if we know history, Ashkenazis came from Germany. What Arthur Kessler says, after Genghis Khan conquered the Khazars became nomad, they migrated to Germany. Germany let them in, welcomed them in. There was more millionaires in Germany. There was more Jewish millionaires in Germany than there was anywhere in the world. Germany welcomed them in. They controlled the media. They controlled publication. They controlled, by all intents and purposes, Germany. So when Germany was about to win World War I, all the Zionists wanted, all the Rothschilds wanted was the land of Palestine. That's all they wanted. Germany said, no, it's not ours to give you. The minute that happened, Germany went to Great Britain. Germany went to Great Britain and reinforced them. And this is where the Balfour Declaration come in, and you can read it on your own time. The Balfour Declaration and the Treaty of Versailles really paint a picture of what the books didn't tell us. But the third slide I want to tell you, I remember this in New York Times, and you can't find it no more. The president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, he said when he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt said the Jews will never be able to live here in peace because they left here black, but came back white. Crazy thing, I'm just touching on a part of it, right? So If you notice, what I put in the middle, 1941 and 1945 was the Holocaust, right? Now, what if I told you, if you wanted to gain the sympathy of the world, because after World War I, Rothschild still didn't get Palestine. The Balfour Declaration came out 1917. War was over 1918. Treaties, declarations happened, and Zionists still didn't get Palestine. So they had to invoke some type of sympathy in the world that when they got Palestine, nobody could say anything because they deserved it. They needed it. Income, and arguably, I know it's gonna rub some people the wrong way, but what if you would start something that can invoke some type of sympathy? And in comes the Holocaust. Now, as terrible as the Holocaust was, sympathy for the Jewish race is what the Rothschilds needed in order to acquire Palestine and Israel. And is this too far-fetched? Because remember, we done spoke about Pike's predictions, or he was in a trance for World War I, World War II. I didn't talk about World War III yet. Now this is 1871, and if World War I went the way it exactly happened, World War II went exactly how it happened, it's safe to say World War III is going to happen the way it is being prophesied now. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agitators of the Illuminati between the political Zionists, the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionists, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations once more divided on these issues because, of course, there was just an article that came out that said United States, and I don't mean to stop there, but United States churches give over 300, I think it was 300, it was in the billions, give over $1 billion to Israel, because God says those who bless Israel shall be blessed, and those who curse. This is the deception now. This is the deception. So other nations is going to become more divided on this issue, will constrain and fight point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. Just beat us down till we don't want no more, right? So we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly the nations the effect of the absolute atheism or origin of savagery and the most bloody turmoil, right? Now, what is a nihilist, right? Now, the nihilist is those that a person who believes that life is meaningless, rejects all religions and moral principles. You're going to be beat down so much that you're going to be like, who's coming? Just come on, just take me. I don't care who I'm fighting for. And then everywhere the citizens are obliged to defend themselves. So I don't want to go through all of this, but the way that the Third World War breaks down in granular level, how he projects this, and you see the trajectory the world is going, I mean, it's safe to say, right? So the one thing that was highlighted, but without knowing where the horrendous or duration will receive the true light through. Now this is Pike talking. This is Pike talking. Will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view. This is what he thought. Every book he wrote, this was in mind.